David Begnaud joins us now from San Juan. David, we are now on the other side of this massive storm. I can see that people are out and about behind you. They're on the streets. There's some drivers on the road, but I know it's bad. Tell me about the aftermath.
There was a dusk to dawn curfew, so now that the curfew's over, people are out and about, milling around, many of them surveying the damage themselves. The only noise we hear right now in San Juan is coming from generators. That's the only lifeline these people have. Power is cut. There's no way to communicate. You've got folks who are standing in front of this Starbucks. Luckily, Anne-Marie, one of the only ways people can reach relatives, let's say on the mainland, to let them know they're okay, is by coming to a Starbucks, which had its windows blown out and the top portion of the sign torn off, and they get on Wi-Fi, and that's how they're able to let people know that they're okay. But we have people who are working with us on our crew here in Puerto Rico who haven't been able to reach their family members on the island to let them know they're okay or to make sure the family members are okay. Here's what I can tell you. It is a dire situation, and we're hearing it from, in fact, some of the security guards who are police officers working on our team here on the ground. They are telling us that they're hearing. Why are we relying on what we're hearing from them? Because it's nearly impossible to get any information out from the government because they're having trouble even disseminating information. Here's what we know. There are areas of the island, such as Levittown, which apparently has nearly been decimated. People are being rescued from there. They have been starting last night, and it continues right now. One officer described them setting up a shelter that looks something like a refugee camp. There are areas of the island that we cannot access because it's simply too difficult to get there. The streets are cluttered with trees and power lines. By the way, speaking of power, Anne-Marie, the government is projecting this island could be without electricity for months.
I don't even understand how people are going to deal with that. No electricity. This is perhaps the biggest storm to hit this island in 80 years, but it clearly knocked the island back way more than 80 years in time without electricity. So how are people coping? I mean, in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of medical needs, what are they doing?
Well, you know, as I look down the street, so you've got the CVS pharmacy that is boarded up. Across the street is a Walgreens pharmacy. Both of them are still closed. We have wondered where are people getting food right now, right? So if you have no electricity and you don't have a generator, whatever's in your refrigerator is going to spoil quite soon if you don't have, you know, peanuts or something that's in a can that you can use. The good answer is I don't know. And trying to find out is extremely difficult because so far we've only been able to drive about 5 to 6 miles from our hotel, and we're driving the wrong way on a one-way street because that's the only way to get around here. Let me give credit to the people of this island. Everyone has been incredibly polite, incredibly disciplined, and they seem to be taking it in stride. The question is, how long can you live like this before you start to lose your patience?
Indeed, I'm sure people are scrambling to get off the island at this point if they can. As I understand it, flash flood warnings are still in effect, so it's still pretty dangerous out there, and people are being urged to remain in shelters, I suppose, if they have a shelter that's worthy of remaining in.
Well, and to your point, there were actually some shelters that had been established where people had to be evacuated from the bottom floor up to some of the second and third levels because they were starting to take in water in those shelters. The governor told us before the storm hit that he believed they could house as many as 150,000 people. But when the storm hit, only about 11,000 had actually gone into shelter. Again, we genuinely do not know how bad it actually is because we haven't even been able to get reports or get into the areas, or even rescuers haven't been able to access some of the hardest hit areas of the island that are outside the capital of San Juan. Listen, the lights that are on behind me, and it's hard to see now that it's daybreak, they're powered by the generators, and that's because the infrastructure here, the electrical grid here in Puerto Rico, is so dilapidated and in bad shape that businesses around here have generators 24/7, because otherwise how could you run a business and make money on an island that loses power quite frequently? So that's why here in San Juan we're able to stay on television, right? It's impossible really for us to leave our hotel to get on television. So what we'll do when we're finished here is we will go out, we will gather, and we will come back in order to get it on the air. To your point about getting out of here, there are American tourists who came here on vacation who are stuck. We're not quite sure when the airports are going to reopen. We don't even know what kind of damage may have been done to the airport. The government has said that there are some military relief planes which are scheduled to arrive either today, maybe tomorrow, some U.S. government planes that will be bringing relief aid. That's all we know as of now.
Well, David, it sounds pretty bad, and based on what you're telling us, it also sounds like we won't understand the full extent of the damage for several days, maybe even weeks. David Begnaud in San Juan, Puerto Rico, thank you so much.
You bet.